Hi, I'm Paul Montone. I'm with PCC's Online Learning Department. I'm here with Jessica Bernards. Jessica, thank you for taking time being here today. Could you introduce yourself?
I'm Jessica Bernards. I am math faculty here at Portland Community College, and I also teach in our professional development area.
Great. Jessica, you have some strategies for building community in your online classes. It has to do with discussion. Could you talk a little bit about your strategy?
Yeah, I think one of the things that would be best is to show it. But before I get to that, I'll give a little bit of background. So I teach fully online for us and all asynchronous. And one of the things that I missed from going from in person to online was really that student interaction and building that community. And I really wanted to be intentional about that in my online classes. In our calculus classes, and in person at Portland Community Colleges, we have these labs that students will work on together. Really brings out that rich math dialogue where they really get into the math and they're able to talk through it together, which really a lot of studies show help students learn it at a better level and deeper level than if they were doing it in isolation. And so I grappled with how am I going to emulate this in an online class? And I'm very fortunate because in our department we have incredible faculty members. And so I was able to brainstorm with Asina Fong, as well as take some really great suggestions and tips from Wendy Fresh in the department and put together this new discussion board protocol. So now we have this in all of our online calculus shells. And it's been amazing with really emulating that in person kind of conversation. All right, here you can see we're in my shell. And so we have discussions due every week. And so there's actually three components to a discussion. The first thing that students do, and I'm going to scroll down, is create a discussion thread. And they have a subject line. This came from Astina. She loves math jokes. So they have to put in a math joke and then the punchline is in the main body. And so what they'll do is they will open up this lab assignment. And so all of the lab assignments are linked right here. They're all Google Docs. So that way students have a free software platform to do their work on. It's also really easy for us to go back and look at their versions. They open up this Google Doc for the lab. They're going to work on it first individually. And once they're done, they have the whole week to work on it. Then on Friday, they're going to post their initial draft. So they go to this discussion board area and post that initial draft. Now, that's Friday. Between Friday and Sunday, they will look at what other peers have posted. And from that, start conversations and give feedback. And this is really where that learning happens. And so one of the things that I kept on finding was I felt like discussion boards were like hoops for students to jump through, and they didn't get a lot out of them. Once we changed it to this, it was huge. And so biggest thing, and this tip I got from Wendy Fresh, was forcing students to be one of the first two responses to a post. So that means I'm not having one student get like 15 students giving feedback. They're like, yeah, what they said, this is great. And then people getting nothing. This forces that every single student is going to have at least two other peers that will have looked at their work and provided feedback, which is awesome. And then there's a full rubric they have to follow for that. What I found is if I just say, give them feedback, I don't get good quality feedback. So instead, we created a rubric for it. They have a lab discussion, it's 5 points, and then the actual lab itself is worth 15 points. So those 5 points are done in a rubric. And we use D2L rubrics for it, so it looks kind of weird here, but when we go to grade it, it's right within D2L rubrics, really easy for students and us to see and grade. And so again, we're very specific. It has to be at least 7 complete sentences. Here's all these different content that you can follow. And so it really ensures that it's not just, oh, this is good, I liked your notation, but hey, I noticed you did this, which I didn't realize before, or hey, where did you get this answer? This is what I was thinking. And by doing it this way, we found it's really emulating those same conversations. And I like to call them like math fights almost, where it's like, well, no, I think it's this. No, I think it's this. But now we're having that happen in our discussion boards in our online classes. It's so rich and amazing. So that happens. And then what they do is take the feedback that their peers got them, and then they can revise their lab. So what they posted on Friday, now they can go through and revise and then submit the final version of their lab to the assignment tab. And that's kind of the key for me, at least it makes it much easier to grade. And then not everyone's seeing everyone's final as well. When they submit it, the question that we have in that assignment tab is, how did you use the peer feedback to revise your lab? So not only are they having to give feedback to other students, but we're making sure they're actually reading the feedback that other students in the class gave them. There's points for that where they have to go through and do that. It has made such a difference when it comes to building community. I'm now seeing students that are talking to each other that never would have before. They've built these relationships and friendships. I had two girls who met through our chat, our discussion boards, and now they're taking all these future classes together because they've just built such a great rapport with each other. They email back and forth. They're both fully asynchronous online students, and now they feel connected to someone at PCC, which I think is really huge.
Jessica, thank you for sharing that example. And what I thought was really neat was the way that you scaffold the assignment. You're breaking up what ultimately is the end product with that assignment that they're turning in, but using the discussion to help scaffold not only the work, but that conversation. And then you've got that reflection piece. So there's that metacognitive work, and they're really evaluating the feedback that was most beneficial for them. And I think it's really neat the way that you try to work towards some equity with making sure that everybody gets at least two responses. And it's not just the one student getting multiple responses. Yep. Another question I have is, how has it helped you as the instructor facilitate discussions in the online environment?
So I want to just back up really fast to something you just said, a comment about the discussions and how it's scaffolded. I will say it's made a huge difference. We used to have these labs as worksheets that they would individually do, and I was finding so much cheating happening in them. Now I'm not, because I think it's so much less higher stakes when they're first doing their draft. And I do have it where they have to have actually attempted. So if they upload a blank worksheet, they don't get credit for that lab. They have to have actually solidly attempted the lab to get credit on it for that initial draft. But it's so much less high pressure. And so it really makes them really think about it and do their best and want to learn versus being so crazed about the grade. I kind of love that fact, especially when we're using these to get deeper into the math. When it comes to me facilitating, that's been kind of a hard thing for me. So I am like a very hands-on teacher, and I like to always have my hands in everything and communicating and all the things. And what I've learned since I moved to doing discussions this way is I need to back off. So I need to let the students have this time. This is their safe place to talk about the math, to discuss it, to work it out together, to try to figure out what the misconception is if someone has a different answer than another person, who's right, who's wrong. Maybe they're both wrong. And I found if I put myself in there too much, it ends up taking away from that student interaction. So this term was my first term, and it was really hard. And I had a lab assistant too, like a peer mentor that's in there, that both of us had to sit back and be like, okay, we're just going to monitor it to make sure everything's appropriate. Everyone's getting feedback, solid feedback, and that they're really on task. And then we give them that. I give a lot of feedback when I go to grade afterwards. And again, it's been hard, but it's been so powerful. And the grades that we're seeing in our classes are so high. Like, for example, my Calc 2 class, I just finished my grades, and my Calc 1, I had not one student fail. I've never had that. I think that's pretty cool.
So this is definitely not a one and done kind of assignment. It's neat the way that you've scaffolded this so it's got a formative assessment quality to it and then a summative assessment quality to it. So if other faculty members wanted to try this strategy, what advice or suggestions would you give them to start off?
Yeah, so I mean, it's scary at first, but try it. And feel free to reach out to myself, Austina, Wendy. We're happy to help. We took a lot of time with making sure that the wording that we have in here is really good and easy to follow, clean for students. They know exactly what the expectations are. So definitely feel free to reach out if you need it. AI was actually really helpful in ensuring that our instructions were clear. So we created it, threw it into AI, and then asked it to update or change it or give suggestions if there was something that wasn't clear. And I think that made a huge difference. On top of that, rubrics. Rubrics are huge. I always recommend using rubrics any area, any way that you can. When it comes to equitable grading, that's one of the biggest tools that we have in our toolbox. Not only will it make things easier for students to understand what the expectation is, by having this in a rubric and very detailed and specific of what our expectations are, students then are actually rising to those expectations because they understand them. So it's just very clearly laid out. It makes it not even just great for the students with expectations, but for the teacher, it's so much easier for me to grade and so much easier for me to pinpoint, like, okay, you got a 5 here out of 7, and that's because of XYZ. And I can easily give the feedback within the rubric. I just highly recommend using that rubric feature.
So multiple points of engagement, clear expectations leads to some solid outcomes for your students and for you. That's awesome. Thank you.
Thanks. Appreciate it. It was a team effort. I can't take all the credit. I wish I could, but I can't.
Well, Jessica, thank you so much for sharing your strategies with us. We really appreciate it.
Thanks. Take care, everyone.